20 years ago, I started a job managing the national tour of Les Misérables in New York City. And now, one of the things that we do a lot of is taking people sailing. People can change. And today we're going to talk about how and why people can change. Welcome to the What Could Go Right podcast. We are your hosts, Erik Orton.
And I'm Emily Orton.
And here we talk about personal growth and sailing. In 2014, we moved aboard a fixer-upper sailboat and bootstrapped a year sailing with our 5 kids, and it changed our lives forever.
We tell the whole story in our memoir, our book, 7 at Sea. On this podcast, we want to help you go from fear to freedom, one adventure at a time.
So today was a little bit of a momentous day because I went to go see Les Misérables on tour, came to the theater here in the Eccles Theater here in Salt Lake City. And what made it extra special is I took my son Eli, who was born after I managed the Les Misérables tour in New York. And he didn't know that I worked on the show. He didn't know the show at all. But I feel like it was 2 years ago, he kind of discovered the music. Is that?
He decided to read the book.
Okay, so he read the book. Our oldest daughter, Karina, had read it many, many years ago. I have still not read it, I'm ashamed to say. I'm in the process of reading it.
He's carrying it around, and every time our son comes and checks to see where's the bookmark and if it's moved forward, and he'll open it and say, oh, he's at the part where this happens. Oh, he's at the part where this happens.
But it's a very thick book, and I like to travel light.
If you've read this book, tell us in the comments what your favorite part was.
Yeah, so Eli read the book, and then he discovered the musical, fell in love with the music, has been listening to it and singing it for quite some time now. So for his birthday last year.
And watching every version
version on film. And then when we were like, oh yeah, I used to manage that show. He's like, what? Anyway, because he was, like I said, not born when that was
a big part of our life.
When that was my main job. So bought him tickets for his birthday at the end of last year, and we got to go see it today, and it was super fun. It was really emotional for both of us. It's an impactful story. The story itself is about Jean Valjean, who goes through an epic transformation, and his pursuer, his I don't want to say his enemy, but the antagonist is Javert, who is incapable of change in a lot of ways, and it's his ruin. And today, when I was in the theater, I was touched by this scene where they're face to face, and Jean Valjean he's a completely new man, and he gives Javert his freedom when he doesn't have to. And Javert does not know what to do with this. I know this is plot spoilers if you haven't read it, but it's been out for 200 years and change. So you've had your chance. Anyway, Javert's trying to tell Valjean that you're the same convict, you're the same criminal that you were 20, 30, 40 years ago. People can't change. You're still
a bad guy.
You're still a bad guy. And Valjean says, you're wrong, Javert. People can change. And I'm a man just like you, no worse than any other man. And he kind of makes the case for transformation, and so there's all kinds of transformation. You can go from criminal to pillar of the community. You can go from,
working in the Broadway industry to sailing boats.
Yeah. So we're capable of all kinds of change. And so Emily and I thought that on the marking this day of something that was kind of a touchstone, we just talk about it a little bit. It was really, really satisfying for me. I texted Emily at intermission. I said, because for some reason, I got emotional at the end of Act 1. I know the story. I know every word in the score, and still I was getting emotional. And I just texted her and our kids, and I said, "Hey, this is like reconnecting with an old friend." which it was. And and I think one, that's the power of story, that's the power of song, and also the fact that we can. There are just these beautiful overarching ideas that resonate with us as humans. I think there's a reason Les Miserables has stood the test of time, not only as a novel but as a musical, because for 40 years it's been playing around the planet in all kinds of languages, and I felt grateful just to be a part of the show for the few years that I did. But it was, I guess I'm going to go back. I How I discovered the show, and I guess this maybe speaks to transformation, because I was in high school. I was a junior. I had started to do theater. Prior to that, I'd been an athlete. I was on the swim team, and I was a musician. I was trained as a musician when I was young, but I'd never done theater, and I kind of got tricked into doing theater.
That's true.
That's another story. But I got tricked into auditioning for a show, and I got cast, and so I'm hanging out with the theater kids now, and they're all introducing me to musicals, and and one of my friends, she plays me the score for Les Miserables, and I'm just like, can't even understand what I'm listening to, because there was like pop and rock music on the radio, and there was classical music, and I liked both. I played in an orchestra and a symphony, and this was like the blending of the two, which was totally new for me, and it kind of shook me in a cool way. And I was like, I want more of this, and it was really one of the first shows that got me hooked on doing theater. And from then on, like I was what, 17 years old. From then until I was in my 30s, kind of like that was my main pursuit.
Yeah, you were writing shows in your free time and preparing to work in the industry and learning all the shows. I can share my first time.
Yeah, Eli and I were talking about your experience seeing Les Mis for the first time.
Yeah, when I went to see Les Mis, it was a gift for my 16th birthday. I liked some of the songs that I had heard in just in my connection with other kids who were in the school musicals and things like that. And so my parents, I don't know, they got me a ticket for my birthday, and then my best friend also got a ticket. I think her parents paid for her ticket, but the deal was that we were going to go together. So we went and saw it at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. And I had never been to a professional theater production of any sort in my life, and I didn't know exactly what to expect. It was at the same time luscious and luxurious, the music, the costumes and set, but a lot of things were done with imagination, like props were pantomimed instead of actually having the items in hand. And I just had never seen anything quite like it, and I didn't know what to think. And I think as I left the theater, I was still kind of in shock. And we went. I think we were going to try to catch the metro back to our neighborhood, and I called my mom at a payphone, and she was like, "How was the show?" And I wasn't sure what to think, and I had told my friend, like, I wasn't expecting this and I wasn't expecting that, and she had said, your parents wasted their money on you because you didn't even get it. And then when I got on, I know, nice, right? But she was actually pretty awesome. Anyway, I got on the phone with my parents and they said, how was it? And it kind of just broke over me all at once. Then I just like sat on the floor and bawled. Because it was so cathartic and so beautiful and so redemptive. And yeah, I just love that story. And probably like many other teenage girls, I used to just wander around my neighborhood singing the songs from that show, that the ones that I identified most with at that age. And then when Erik was working on it, sometimes I would go with him to the different cities where it was playing, and I would get to see it again. And every time it just felt like such a treat, because it is a story of just what a difference one person can make, what a difference a little mercy can make, and how we all want to be the good guy. I really loved it. And when our daughter read it for the first time, I remember one of the real takeaways from her. She had a very keen sense of right and wrong, and going through the tragic experience of some of the characters gave her so much compassion. She said, I might make a different choice, but wow, my heart really goes out to this person, and I don't judge them. I have compassion for them. And that was, it just has brought so much growth and goodness into our lives.
And I would say the same for Eli, where, and I think he's okay with us sharing this. He's struggled with some mental health issues, and one of them has been OCD,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing the world in a very black and white kind of way. And for those of you that know the story, that's Javert. It's either one thing or it's the other, and there's no way there. There's no gray area for Javert.
And he's also very much like Valjean because he has such a tender heart and he's full of so much love and generosity.
And yeah, so today seeing it, it was my heart really went out to Javert actually, because I just feel like what a what a what an admirable man, because he's striving to do the right thing. But when somebody shows him mercy and grace and gives him something that is undeserved, he doesn't know what to do with it. And
Mm-hmm.
his world just comes off the axis, and he's incapable of change. And I think that is one of the great superpowers of life. Children are naturally good at it. I think we're born pliable and willing to change, and we get stiffer and crunchier the older we get.
It
And
doesn't have to be that way.
it does, but I'm saying it doesn't have to be. Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be. And so I guess that's really why I think talking about it today matters, is because I'm guessing that there's something in your life that you want to change in some way. It could be from a what we might sort of stereotypically think of as going from good to bad. You might want to be, you might want to be a better person in your life in some way, or you might just have a shift. There's maybe an old dream or an old interest or an old pursuit or hobby that you kind of like. Well, I've always done this thing, and maybe it's time to just try something else. Or it could be a profession or education, or which side of your head you part your hair on. It can be anything. But change, I think, is so healthy. And we don't necessarily need to change things up just for the sake of change. But I think being open to it and flexible and pliable, especially the older we get, it's healthy. It's healthy for our bodies, it's healthy for our hearts and our minds. And so I guess my invitation is just think about, in what ways might you want to be different? And maybe different is a better way, because it's not about being better or worse, but it can be as simple as you want to rearrange the furniture.
Yeah, I think we can get very rigid and that ages us. It's good to know like some things about me, I hope those things never change. But there's always plenty of room for exploration and discovery and being willing to be delighted. And yeah, we live in an age and an era of constant change, and new things are becoming possible all the time. And just being able to stay open to that, keeping one of the songs is keeping a heart full of love, right? Looking for the good in others, and being teachable, being willing to learn from them, being curious and willing to ask questions. And even in this show, some of the things that are important are that people feel strongly about things. They have convictions, and yeah, it's okay to pick up the baton at any stage and say, hey, I actually care a lot about this, and so I want to make more space for it in my life.
So if you're looking for a good read the novel. If you're looking to watch a movie, there's at least half a dozen versions of Les Miserables out in the world.
if you get a chance to see it live, I really do think it is an incredible experience.
Yeah, actually, I want to come back to that real quick before we wrap up. But I'll also say this: if you also haven't listened to the score, it's available in all places where you can stream and download music, and it's well worth listening to. I guess I'll say this: at intermission, and then a little bit after the show, Eli and I sat down and we were, just flipping through the program, the playbill, and because I was curious who that I used to work with was still on the show. Obviously, Cameron McIntosh is still the lead producer of it. It's, he has the worldwide rights, and the writers, the composers, Alain Boublil and Claude Michel Schoenberg are still on the playbill. And there's another guy who helped write some of the original French lyrics. But everybody else on the design team, the directing team, the casting, the general management, stage managers, all that was different. I went through the whole program, and I found
Two people.
I think it was two people, and I used to work with both of them very closely. The guy who was in charge of booking the tour, and his right hand lady, she
helped,
colleague in the office, and they're still there. They're still trucking after all these years, and so sometimes you don't have to change it up. But I was, in some ways, I was a little sad to not see more names that I recognized, but also happy because everyone's moved on. Everyone's done things differently. Even the show has changed. They've restaged it. They've reorchestrated it. I think they've trimmed a couple of spots. I
think they did.
I think they did. And there's some fun economic trivia behind why they did that. But yeah, just to see that even the show after all these years continues to evolve in costume design, and each performance is performed by a different set of actors, or each company, I guess, each tour. And so there's a lot that's the same, but there's a lot that's different. And so today was just a case study in sort of thinking about and exploring the idea of change and being different. And so hopefully this gives you something to think about in your own life, about something you might want to change, or in some way that you might want to be different. Because when you do, maybe it'll go from good to better, or from better to best. At least that's the idea, right? Anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, as you're saying it, it just makes me think of a little microcosm for life, that, you had your time on the show, and you made friends, and you made a contribution, and you learned a lot. And it was a great experience for you and everyone that you were working with. And then you moved on, but the show, you continued on in growing and learning and having adventures and transformation, and the show's continuing to move forward. And that same experience is being had by the people who are now contributing, now participating, and now in the audience. So I think that's really beautiful, that whatever you have been working on or contributing to, that goodness still lives on, and you can also live many different stories as well.
I know Eli said that he hopes that this show is always being performed somewhere in the world, that it always continues on. And so
I agree with that.
I agree with it too. And hopefully you do something or a few things that just live on forever, that leave a legacy of you in the world, and better and better versions of you. So thanks for listening. What could go right? Hey guys, it's Erik. Before we sign off, I just want to give you the sailing update. For those of you that are interested in sailing with us sooner rather than later, we do have a couple of last-minute spots that have opened up. A couple of people have had to shift around. So we're going to be in the Bahamas, March 31st through April 5th. We have a couple of cabins open. So if that works for you, we're going to sail in and out of Nassau, sailing the beautiful Exuma Islands. If you want to sail with us a little bit further out on the calendar, June 7th through the 14th, we're going to be in Italy. All these next trips are in Europe, in the Mediterranean. Italy, Naples, beautiful spot, June 7th through the 14th. Greece, sailing out of Athens, July 19th through the 26th. Croatia, a town called Split. We're going to discover it together. I haven't been there before. So August 2nd through the 9th. So you can hop on one of our spring trips to the BVI or the Bahamas, or you can join us in Italy, Greece, or Croatia, just shoot us an email, hello@theawesomefactory.nyc, or ping us on social media, DM us, and we'd love to hear from you and hopefully welcome you aboard.